Hi, everyone, and welcome to this really special Heal interview with a woman that you will want to know for the rest of your life. I am so excited, Esther Gokhale, to have you here, and Daniel especially with the back pain issues and
Yes.
everything. We first met Esther when she was giving an incredible talk at the Transformational Leadership Council. And I was like, I had my jaw dropping because both Daniel and I have had a lot of back pain in our life. And to think that you have broken barriers and busted myths and you have brought to the world your Gokhale Method that is changing lives. And Daniel, I'd love Daniel to read your bio for you, but I must say to everybody that since that talk, I've been using your method, and even in the pool swimming, I've been using the method, and I feel like an inch or so taller, and I haven't measured myself yet, but that's a pretty big.
Well, you look taller.
That's a pretty incredible thing, Esther, considering that I did have 3 fully degenerated discs. So for me to be able to feel and look taller, even in a few months, putting your method into play, for me, it's just been phenomenal, and definitely a consciousness raising healing method. So, Daniel, please introduce this wonderful woman. Yes, glasses first.
Esther Gokhale has been involved in integrative therapies all her life. As a young girl growing up in India, she helped her mother, a registered nurse, treat abandoned babies waiting to be adopted. This early interest led her to study biochemistry at Harvard and Princeton, and later acupuncture at the San Francisco School of Oriental Medicine. After crippling back pain during her first pregnancy and unsuccessful back surgery, she began her lifelong crusade to find a solution to back pain. Her studies at the Aplomb Institute in Paris and years of research in Burkina Faso, India, Portugal, and elsewhere led her to the development of the Gokhale Method, which she's been teaching at her Palo Alto Wellness Center for the past 15 years.
Boy, that's a big thank you, by the way.
I would just add that the testimonials and endorsements of Esther's work are mind-blowing, not only from their content, but from the quality of the people who are speaking.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, Daniel is holding up Esther's brilliant book, 8 Steps to Pain-Free Back. And she has also generously given us 5 copies of this book that we will be giving away after the Heal event. And as a free gift to you, I've got it marked, you're going to receive chapter 5 as a gift. And I went through chapter 5 and it's like, oh, you're giving us the best chapter. So Esther, thank you so much for being
here. Very generous. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And I hope to bring some of the secret and magic to your audience, because we have it all in us. And we've been misled about which way is up when it comes to posture. We are actually operating from a poor paradigm. And when we get it straight, it's pretty magical what can happen.
Yeah, so I think getting it straight is your wheelhouse, right?
That's what I do.
Yeah.
So let me, without further ado, show what it is that we're talking about when it comes to primal posture, natural posture, optimal posture. So these Ubang tribesmen have it, and they have many characteristics that I will be describing. So we all started off with this what I call a J spine, where our behinds were behind. So when we were between the ages of 1 and 2, our backsides were out behind. That's why it's called a behind. It's meant to be out behind. And this is not all diaper. This is actually the buttocks protruding backwards. And then up above, what you can see is a fairly straight spine. The upper lumbar area is not super curvy. And we don't have an S-shaped curve like we are led to believe from modern texts and notions. So this J-spine paradigm is what we teach in the Gokhale method. We teach that you're behind us, out behind, and it's not just based on young children. It's based on a lot observation from a lot of populations. For example,
That's just a tech glitch, right?
Yeah, and the Greek statues, if you go back in time and you look at old statuary and old art, this is what you see. A J-spine. The behind is behind, where the buttocks meet the back has a very significant angle. And up higher in the lumbar spine, it's relatively straight. Now, there are other characteristics to observe. For example, that the shoulders are very posterior, that where the ribs meet the abdomen is flush. It's an even line. You don't have the ribs poking out and a corresponding sway in the back. And the Ubang guys, who we started off with, have the same J-spine. Their behinds are behind. And because they are behind, they are in a position of mechanical advantage to work with walking. Every step that these Ubang tribesmen take is a rep. And we want every step to be a rep. Yeah, these people are not going to the gym. They're not doing dozens of reps of glute kicks and donkey kicks and what have you. They're just walking right. And when you walk right, you have 5,000 reps on each side. And if you don't walk right, there isn't any other way to make up for this. You know, no sane person is going to want to or be able to do 5,000 reps of anything. And in every step you take, you want this to be happening. And there are other strengthening and stretching things you want to happen with every step. Like you want your feet to grab so that your feet will become strong. You want your psoas muscle to stretch, and so on. And when you get this portion of your anatomy right, then it's like having your foundation well positioned and the rest of you stacks well, and there's no tension and degeneration in the discs. There's no osteoarthritic changes in the bones. There's no muscles weak from lack of blood flow, not repairing themselves. There's our baseline health. And we were endowed with a lot of innate health and innate beauty and innate power. And this is what we want to have back. That's our birthright. And we've been shortchanged by, very simply, by cultural misunderstandings. And this is what we are here to set right in the Gokhale method. Notice, by the way, that their feet turn out a little bit. That's another notion that we got wrong in modern times. So when you look at these people, you see what I mean by natural dignity. She is just drying her laundry. Yeah, but look at her chest. Look how full it is. This comes from healthy breathing. Contrary to popular belief, healthy breathing doesn't happen exclusively in the belly. The default breath would like to happen in the chest, where it then fashions a good size rib cage for you. It also wants to happen in the back. Every inhalation wants to lengthen you. Every exhalation wants to settle you. And that constitutes an inner massage, if you will. Yeah. And that inner massage therapist was designed by nature to keep the blood circulating and to keep you self-healing. And you don't want to get out of your own way. If you are arching your back or hunching your back, then you have undermined that natural process and you want it back. You want this beautiful neck shape so that your neck doesn't suffer, so that your head gets good circulation, and so on. This was in a tribal market in East India when I was there 5 years ago. And it's relatively unaffected by modern furniture and clothing and norms. And so you can see how far back people's shoulders are. Yeah. And how elongated her neck is. This is beautiful. And it's also natural. You know, we have a lot of notions about, oh, our modern devices are what's ruining us. But you know what? There is nothing inhibiting us from using our modern devices with excellent posture. In fact, it's much easier to learn good posture at a computer with your iPhone. Even the sea monkeys in Japan know how to do this, as you can see. And so I am going to begin by teaching all of you a shoulder roll, because this is the easiest thing I could teach you. And it packs quite a punch. We start, our beginners learn this technique early in their trajectory. And one visual that can help you is to think of there being like a gear mechanism embedded in your shoulder. And you are going to take your soft tissue out of its current ratcheted notch, and you're going to ratchet that soft tissue back a notch or two so that your shoulder is stuck, if you will, in a healthier, more posterior place. And that can then allow your pecs and other muscles to gently lengthen to a more natural baseline length. So without further ado, let me teach you a shoulder roll. One at a time, because each one's different, and because your brain can only really connect with one place at a time, and other reasons as well. We'll just do one. And you take your shoulder from wherever it is and you take it forward a little bit. It's the easy way to get it out of its current place. And then you describe a kind of rainbow going forward, up a moderate amount, going back, back, back. Now, when you go back, don't stick out your chest. Just take your shoulder back and then let it gently slide into position in this posterior place. And what you'll probably discover, especially if you take your hands back and place them closer in on your body rather than somewhere out near your knees where they're dragging your shoulders forward, you'll notice that it's pretty sustainable. So you go forward a little bit, up, back, 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 totally relax. Settle your hands somewhere. If you have pockets, you can put your hands in your pockets so that they stay back. And then you just relax. And what's very cool about this way of doing a shoulder roll is that it's sustainable. It's practical to maintain it there. You're not having to pull some muscle constantly, which makes it impractical and also makes it unhealthy. If you're using your rhomboids constantly, then it's going to just get tired, maybe sore at their attachments on the upper back, and that's no good. And I'm looking at the two of you, and I see your shirt. Look at his shirt. You see the creases? He has done a very effective shoulder roll, and you see more horizontal creases rather than the kind of vertical creases that are more common in modern people from them having their hunched shoulders, right? Now, your shirt, Sandra, doesn't show creases, so we can't read this on you, but we can see your shoulders themselves, very open, broad across the chest, and I can see that you are now moving this area as you breathe, and that's as it wants to be. You know, contrary to some belief circles where you're supposed to only breathe in the belly, put a big question mark against that, and you can
Busting
ask.
belly myth breathing here.
a lot of people think they should exclusively belly breathe. I have a lot to say about that, but let me keep going with my little slideshow. And because there's a lot I would like to share, and then we can.
This feels very good.
Doesn't it feel brilliant? I told you.
Yeah, it really, there's research showing that it affects your mental and emotional health even. It's harder to be depressed with open upper body posture, harder to provoke anxiety in someone who has open upper body posture. If you put anxiety-provoking images in front of someone like that, they're much more likely to fire away in their brain anxious thoughts. But if they're like this, it's harder to get that to happen. So what an easy way to start the cycle of improved mental health, right? I love your creases.
And if anybody, when you're watching this, please, please do this with us, with Esther, because I have to tell you, I have been doing this since I first.
Nice, but I'm going to recommend one at a time, because
Yeah.
2 at a time very easily becomes sticking out the chest.
Okay.
That's another reason to not do it. But 1 at a time, you can really like shepherd each shoulder back to their place. And yes, it feels different. You're breathing differently. The
Right.
circulation to and from your arms is different. You no longer have these 2 heavy appendages pulling you into an increased hunch. So this is one of our easy techniques, very gratifying techniques to teach. And if everything was this easy, then we would just do it. We would transmit our knowledge much more swiftly, but some things do take more care, and to do it responsibly, the teacher has to know something about the background. Like, does this person have herniated discs? Does this person had surgery? What kind of back pain they have? What makes it better? What makes it worse? It's the kind of thing we do in our initial consultation so that we can chart a responsible course. But a few things lend themselves to this sort of presentation. Everyone can do this, provided they're being gentle. And if they get any negative feedback, if anything hurts, that's nature telling you to stop. And we listen to that. We don't say, oh, no pain, no gain. Nature took millions of years to design pain. So we pay attention. We don't just ignore it or shoot the messenger. So as long as we're doing it attentively like that, this is a safe technique and very beneficial for the breathing, for the circulation, for your architecture, and for your mental and emotional health.
Love it.
Back to our slides, and we have, this is a very interesting bunch of data collected onto one slide. And let's look at this chart first, this middle chart. On the x-axis, you have age, and on the y-axis, you have disc narrowing by percentage, and that's an index of disc degeneration. So what we can see is that people who work at their computers, as they age, get disc degeneration. And this is the basis for all those media sound bites about sitting is the new smoking and sitting kills you and blah, blah, blah. But is that really fair? If you're not going to sit, usually you have to earn your living some other way, and it's likely to be manual labor, for example. And then look at the statistics. Much worse. Manual laborers in modern Western culture have particularly bad degeneration of their discs and other problems, back pain and such. So it's not really fair to blame sitting. Sitting is actually protecting us from worse stuff happening. Yeah. But none of it is very good. Everybody in modern Western culture suffers. And where you really want to be is here with the tribal beals. And there, with age, their discs remain pristine. You can't tell a 50-year-old's discs apart from a 20-year-old's disc. How cool is that? That's kind of unheard of in modern Western culture. And this is what we want to understand. This is where we want to be as we age. And it's not rocket science. I can teach you what it is that they are doing to prevent this damage. They're doing it not
consciously. They haven't studied it. They got it passed down through the generations in their village, in their tribal area, where they're observing their grandfathers bend over and do such, and the grandmothers are without words teaching how a baby should be carried. That gets passed down. There's a look and feel, and we want to learn that. And what the Gokhale method has made its business is to articulate what is happening there so that we can learn quickly. It's not rocket science, but it's not trivial. Like, it takes some training to go from where you are to where you want to be, to look like those Bhil tribal guys. All right. So this is, in short, one of the things that those guys are doing. Those Bhil tribals, every time there's something heavy that they're carrying, or there's something, there's impact that might damage their discs and nerves and bones and what have you in the spine, delicate tissues, they are doing what this Portuguese descarregador is doing. So descarregador they are not a thing anymore because the fishing industry is all automated now. But it used to be that these guys carried the fish from the fishing boats to the docks to the restaurant trucks. And every time they're carrying something heavy, and those fish can be very heavy, they do what you see him doing in his abs. There's something going on here, but it's not the typical tuck your pelvis, tighten everything you've got, right? He's doing something different. He is maintaining his J spine. His behind is still behind him. His belt line is angled down towards the front. He's got given his groin. This is how you get good circulation to continue to the legs. He's got bean-shaped feet. That preserves the arches, that makes the architecture of the entire leg correct, which then allows the pelvis to settle, which allows the rest of the back to stack, and so on. It's like a three-dimensional puzzle, intricate, that fits well. We are well designed, but we didn't come with the user's manual. That's the problem. And the culture is not supporting us well. The culture is telling us we should tuck our pelvis and we should stand up straight and thrust out our rib cage and we should do crunches. And I think crunches are a terrible exercise, by the way. They crunch your nerves, they crunch your discs. The Canadian Army has thrown them out. The US Army has thrown them out if you have a back problem. But unfortunately, in the lay public, it is the most common exercise that people do. And instead, they should be doing this. This is the so-called, what we call the inner corset. Inner corset consists of a whole bunch of muscles deep in the abdomen and deep in the back that form like a brace. Yeah. And that's what that descarregador is doing. Every time he carries something, he gets that greyhound look where the abdomen is being slenderized. And if you slenderize your abdomen, the stuff has to go someplace. Where's that going to be? Up. So instead of being a squatter, shorter cylinder, you're going to become a narrower, taller cylinder. And I have a strong feeling, Sandra, that this is one of the techniques you mentioned you've been implementing as you swim.
Yes,
and
exactly.
This is what makes it work. This is what makes that descarregador able to be in his 60s without any trace of back problems or neck problems or foot problems or hip arthritis or any of the stuff that we face in huge frequencies. It's just shocking. It's rare for someone to not have back pain in our culture. We have an 85% incidence of back pain. And we just keep doing little hacks and little symptomatic patches. And, even surgery is just a patch. It's just a hack. It's not getting to the root of the problem. Yeah, we don't understand what the root of the problem is. So I'm going to teach you this inner corset. It's going to be rough. It's a rough first pass, but it's something. This can serve you. And if you do it gently, there isn't grave danger. Yeah. So I'm going to encourage you to stand up, and we're going to, I'm going to raise my shirt so you can see my greyhound look here. yeah, when I do it. So first you want to do what I call a ready position, like this. In tennis, ready is like this. We're not going to do tennis ready, but neither do we want to just park in our joints like many people do, lock their knees, lock their groin, arch their back, stick their head forward, park in the joints and do damage to the joints. We want to be a little bit ready and standing, like if something came at us, we would be able to move, we'd be able to do something useful. All right, so once you've got this ready position, you want to imagine that you are walking into cold ocean water or a cold lake, and the water is rising and it's rising, and you are trying to get away from the water. And that will give you a decent approximation to the particular combination of muscles that you want to use to protect your spine. See, I've become slenderer, I've become taller, and now I'm ready to go jogging. I'm ready to carry 2 heavy suitcases. I'm ready to be on a bumpy bus, all kinds of things which would otherwise do damage. I can do twists if I want to do, yoga poses, dance, whatever. You want to do this first, because twist plus compression constitutes danger, damage. That's where a lot of the events happen that lead to people going to the emergency room. So don't do that. You want to be slenderer, taller. Imagine cold water coming up and you're trying to avoid it. And that's your way that you want to be before you swing that golf club, before you serve that tennis shot, that ace. And so that's the inner corset in rough.
I must say, the inner corset, you were right. That's what I've been practicing. The moment you said, pretend you've got cold water, I mean, every one of us, when we've gone to the cold ocean, you do this, right? It's like this innate thing. I don't know how we think we're getting away from the cold water, but it's like, yeah, we all get taller. And every time now I go into the water, by the way, our water's 88 degrees, but I do I do my behind, and I lengthen before I do anything. And it's made a huge difference. Even when I'm walking now, I've been saying to you, Daniel, do this, do it like this, like pretend you're going into cold water. By the way, it's a brilliant thing, because
I have to give credit to our Wisconsin teacher, Doreen, because she lives near cold ocean, lake. And she came up with this. In my book, I don't have this particular way of doing it. I have it's a stronger method, but it's a little more convoluted, and I wouldn't share it so easily with a beginning audience. But this one, people get.
Yes.
And they don't do the usual kind of arching thing, which is what people do when you ask them to lengthen their spines. Mm-hmm. They arch.
Yeah.
That's not so good.
No, straight up. Yeah, good. I love
All
that.
right.
I love the inner corset idea.
Back to, pardon?
I love the inner corset image.
Inner corset.
Yeah.
So we enunciate very carefully, because that's a funny story I don't need to tell.
Okay, you can if you want.
No, when you teach for years and years and years, you weed out all sorts of little things, so we used to teach inner corset, and then we'd sometimes see students stare like deer in a headlight.
Oh no,
they misheard something. And so we learned to enunciate very carefully. A silly little thing, but most of the things that you learn over the years are much more useful than that, like really refine what order you do things, what images you use, and which ones you don't use. It's a fun study, art and science.
Yeah, it's
back
totally
to
beautiful.
Our slides. So people of old used to do things like this, play and with abandon with their grandchildren, and do heavy stuff and teach. And look at him, he has really beautiful stature, really good carriage. And he's not only able to play with his grandchild with abandon, but he's also passing something on of value beyond the fishing skills. He's passing on his way of being in the world. And this is something that all of us want to be able to do. So there is hardcore studies showing that the J spine is right and that the S spine paradigm is plain wrong. It correlates with back pain. So this was done in Kansas. A surgeon did a study studying 100 people who have back pain, comparing their spinal shape to 100 people who don't have back pain. This is one of the only studies I have been able to find that makes a distinction between upper and lower lumbar curvature. Most of them lump it together and come up with the ridiculous conclusion that posture has no relationship with back pain. And because no matter what lumbar spine you have, shape you have, the curve, whether it's more or less, no, they didn't look right. They didn't make a distinction between upper and lower. This study did and shows exactly what we're claiming. J spine rules. Yeah, you want a J spine, you don't want an S spine. And we used to draw it right too. In old anatomy books, you see this J spine. The behind's behind, and then there's this elongated lumbar section. And you can see all the discs in here have their requisite cylindrical home. The discs are cylindrical, they have a cylindrical home, it's a fit. L5S1 is in our species is wedge shaped. And when you have your behind, like this old anatomy illustration shows, then that wedge shaped disc is being given a wedge shaped home. It's a fit. When you tuck your pelvis, then you are squeezing the front part of that disc and the contents of the disc are going back. And that is a big no-no. And when you create exaggerated lumbar curve, which is what we're taught to do, you know, when we're told to sit up straight and stand up straight, then you're damaging every disc in the spine. You're causing these exaggerated curves, and you're also damaging all the vertebrae, because when you put stress at the edges, that induces calcium deposition at the edges. And what is the disease name for that? Osteoarthritis. And if this is what we're doing all day, because we're told to sit up straight and stand up straight, and because we have exaggerated curves in our so-called ergonomic furniture, which usually is the worst designed furniture in my book, then no wonder we all have back pain and degenerated discs and osteoarthritic changes, because we're just doing the wrong shape in our back. And what we need is something quite different. We need furniture that supports this. And if we're starting off with this, we better put something sticky up here for people to attach their spines to, so they get elongated, so they can flatten out their erroneous upper lumbar curves. And we also want space for the behind to go behind. So in what we do in the Gokhale method is we help people transform the shapes of their spines from S or C if they've never tried to have good posture, or melted into yourself I is another shape that we see quite often, to J. Yeah, we want this elongated J spine. And I call it a J, it's a calligraphy J, right? A stylized modern J with a little hook. You see what I mean, compared with this S. So I speak from personal experience. This is the shape of my spine. When I was 27, I had been 9 months, it started when I was 9 months pregnant with my first child, and I developed this enormous herniation in my L5S1 disc. Now you can see that I'm not giving my wedge-shaped disc a wedge-shaped space. I'm squishing the front broad edge of the wedge, and the contents are being pushed backwards, and they are pressing against my spinal cord. And this is not right. This is bad architecture. And the radiographer drew marker signs around here and said this was the biggest herniation he had seen in a year. And I'm the one who could tell you all about how it feels. It was horrendous. It was torture. It was like having an ice pick in your bum. And I had sensations all the way down to my toes, and I couldn't carry my child. I couldn't even carry a cooking pot. I couldn't sleep at night for more than 2 hours. I had to get up and walk around the block and get rid of spasm. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And so finally, after everything I tried failed, and I mean PT and chiropractic and acupuncture and me checking my head, yoga, massage, acupressure, stretches, strengthening, you name it, I did it, except I didn't want to do pain meds because I was nursing my child. And so I just suffered, and then finally gave up and had surgery, and they removed 2 small fragments that had herniated that were floating around in the canal, which I think explains why lying down was so painful for me. And they removed those. They dug out a bit more of my insides of my disc to prevent herniation, re-herniation, and sewed me back up. But then within a year, I had some re-herniation happen. They wanted to do another surgery. Looking back now, I see what the problem was. Wrong shape. No, I had an S shape. This is the bottom of an S, and then it would go on up to have a thoracic curve. So that's what I was doing, like everybody else. And what I needed to do was lengthen, flatten this, increase the angle here afterwards. That's not the first project because that would have just pinched off whatever was herniated. So anyway, so when I re-herniated my disc and they wanted to do another surgery, that's when I was lucky to be exposed to other ideas. I kept casting a wider and wider net. You do that in desperation. I mean, I was facing life as a cripple. I was told not to have any more kids, and I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't, horrible. So I want to share what the shape of my spine is now. And to do so, I am all censored up. In our company, we do very old-fashioned things, hands-on. Although now we've discovered that one-on-one online is unbelievably effective. And we're doing that too. So we're using technology to teach also, but we've always used technology to reinforce, to explain. And I'll show you. This is a research tool. There are 2 sensor sets. You see the string of 5 sensors. The lowest one is on my sacrum and 4 go up my spine. Well, that sensor set is connected with this app. And let me reduce the shininess so you can actually see it there. So that's the current shape of my spine. You can see it moves with me. When I go forward, when I go back, it's moving with me. But you can also see that the shape is very distinctly modern J, like that calligraphy J, right? And I consider this a good shape. This is what I teach myself and my students. So I'm going to mark it. I'm going to say, yes, this is good. And I'm going to say, this is good for sitting. So now I've marked a target. So now when I leave, you can see how much I'm deviating from what I set to be a target shape, okay? Now, it's interesting to see the insides of, this is a simulation of what's going on the inside of me. Yeah, there you can see discs, you can see vertebrae, pretty close to what I'm doing. And now I want to simulate, I want to recreate what I used to do when I used to have my back problem, right? I used to do this. I used to arch my back, and you can see that the discs are not too happy, right? That was my way of sitting up straight. More people in modern times do something like this. They're rounding their back, and you can see how that affects the discs. You don't want to arch your back. You don't want to round your back. You want to do just right. And, I can do it pretty quickly and effectively because that's what I've been studying and teaching all these years. And so now I know, and we use this to teach when we're doing in-person teaching, like people learn what they need to do in their back to approximate the targets that we have set. And that is a classroom tool. So don't even be asking where you can get one. That is for professional teachers to put on a student's spine. And we use it for research. And we use it to show the changes in the shape of the back as people study and so on. Yeah. So my spine went from being S-shaped to J-shaped. And the good part of that is no more pain. It's been 30 years, zero pain, zero aches, no twinges, nothing. And I never had that second surgery, and I had 2 more children. No incidents. So I'm a pretty good success story, but so are hundreds of my students. I mean, actually, I shouldn't say hundreds. We've had over 10,000 students now. And it's pretty commonplace for people to use the word life-changing. It is life-changing. You know how to use this most important instrument. You know how to play your instrument, the one you are going to play the rest of your life with. So I highly recommend everybody put it on their bucket list to learn how to play their instrument, you know?
We definitely need to put that on our bucket list. And for everybody watching this, how many of you have had your minds expanded right now? Apart from your spines. Yeah, I know, Daniel, I was so excited for you. Esther, I mean, what you've brought to the planet is obviously game-changing and life-changing, because when you're in pain, you're not open to love, to higher consciousness, to all of that. You're surviving rather than thriving. So this has been incredibly important. How do your senses help the posture education? Well, you just showed us the senses with the posture education, right? You're on and it says you're on the cusp of starting a randomized controlled trial at Stanford. So what impact do you think that this study is going to have?
Well, you know, even though we have 10,000 students and we've been gathering our own data, that falls short of the gold standard in medicine of proving whether something's effective. It's totally convincing, right? Like, it's pretty compelling arguments. This is the way our ancestors used to be. It's the way kids are. This is the way the indigenous people are. Here's a X-ray study showing that J-spine is what you want. But that still doesn't, and rightly so. I have great respect for Western medicine and its standards, because otherwise, you know, anything goes. You know, someone has got particular charisma and can push something over that isn't, and then later on you realize, whoa, the earth isn't actually flat. You know, for 600 years, we thought the earth was flat because that's what everybody said it was. And it just plain wasn't, you know, it was round. And the human spine, I'm saying, is J-shaped, but we need to show that. We need to show that when people do that they get better, and we need to have a controlled study. So it's going to convince the medical establishment. It's going to open the very closed gates to the insurance coverage for studying things. You know, that's a mixed blessing to get insurance coverage, but you know, the average person needs help for getting access to this kind of teaching. We keep our costs pared very low, but still it's not affordable to everyone, and it's not even available. They don't know about it. They're not looking on Amazon to see which book sold well. You know, their physician needs to tell them, hey, check this out. And the physicians are bound by these standards. Yeah, they can only recommend things that have been shown by hardcore science, meaning randomized controlled trials, to be effective. And I've been wanting for a decade, 2 decades, that someone with cred would take on this study. And we just landed like a bigger fish than we would have imagined.
Wow,
you know, it's the chief of orthopedics at Stanford, who happens also to be the president of the International Spine Physicians Association. It's like, thank you.
Congratulations.
He was interested. I mean, we did a lot of homework to get someone like that interested. Like, we've published our research on the changes of shape in people's spine, and my colleague who in our company, who I hired, whose specialty is machine learning related to human motion and gait, you know, he's published research with our sensors showing that from one step you can tell with 92% accuracy, I think, whether someone took the course or not.
Wow.
One step, one sensor, and we can tell. So is there something objective happening? Yes. And it correlates with a change in gait, and also late other research showing change in spinal shape, change in lots of things. So, for this researcher, there are two titillating, or scintillating, scintillating barriers to break. One is, here we have something that seems to be effective for back pain. That's a breakthrough, because nothing is very effective in the back pain space. There's always going to be the odd case, but when you look at the statistics, nothing. It's like we're still in the Middle Ages. The best of things take you from being totally miserable to being slightly less miserable. That's it. And the second breakthrough is, we know what we're changing. Our research shows what it is. We're changing spinal shape. Because those people who went from being miserable to slightly less miserable, we don't know what changed. It's like something changed, but we have no idea what.
This study is so exciting. It's
Yeah.
going to prove that it's not just Esther's charisma.
No. Exactly. So, Esther,
There
how-
we go.
how-
Little charisma has, it comes in handy once in a while just to get something going. But
Exactly.
it can take you only so far. And
So how do people in Heal who are watching this, who have now had their minds expanded and going, hang on a minute, I need the J shape. What's their first step, and what should they do and contact, like, we know we're going to be giving them all your contact information, but what would you suggest they do first?
first step for a person who has a serious interest in changing their architecture and getting the huge number of benefits that come with it, or someone who has aches and pains, their best first step is to do an initial consultation.
Right.
Because then because I'm saying general things, but people still wonder, well, does that apply to me? I went to see 10 doctors, nothing happened. Maybe I'm a hopeless case. We have to convince that person in a compelling way. Look at this curve that you have been carrying around for 30 years. And look at that. And look at the way your feet are shaped. And we can change this. And I have to convince them that that can be done. And I'm good at that. Because we do it all the time. This is what I do all day, every day. We
So
change
Esther,
people's shape.
We've got a very high consciousness group of people who
Those are the best people.
who are watching this. Yes. So they will understand that we would not have even invited you into Heal unless you had something that was going to be so beneficial to them that they need to say yes. And I know, look, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that you were offering $100 off their first consultation. Are you still doing that? No pressure.
We will do it for you. We'll do it for your group. The consultation with me is usually $299.
Right.
And for that, people get really good value, I think, because they write everything about their history, what they tried, what made things better, what made things worse, what job they do, whether they're carrying babies around, what sports, and so on. And then they also upload pictures of themselves, sitting, standing, bending, facing forward, sideways. And I will have studied all of that ahead of meeting them, right? So I've read all about them and I've seen their pictures. So I already have some idea of what's going on. And then we meet for 25 minutes. And it's like me showing them their body, the pictures. I use the pictures, plus they get up, maybe walk, maybe do some, lift up their shirt to show the shape of their back, whatever. And then they can see their body through my filter, and I chart for them. And then depending on their goals and their resources, I tell them which way to move forward. We have books, DVDs, we have coaching one-on-one, we have small group in-person classes in some places in the world, and so forth, online, available for everyone. That turns out to be amazingly effective. That's what the study is going to be about, by the way, because we've seen tremendous effectiveness there. So it's like, okay, let's study that. It
So
seems to
everybody
be.
listening to this, Esther, honestly, for $300 for $299, that is incredible value. But if you are inspired by Esther and you want to make your first step, our suggestion would be that you invest the $200 and take the $100 special off just for heal people. And I'm sure that Esther will give us a code or something so that it's only for people who are watching this.
Yeah, we
And-
have a time limited
Yes, good.
with the code, and my people will send that to you, and then you can. Okay,
Thank you for that generous offer.
my pleasure.
Please take advantage of this, everybody, because this is something that's very dear to our hearts. We understand what it's like to suffer from back pain, arthritic pain, from all of the pains that actually make you think, I don't even know if I really want to be here anymore. And when you
I know people like that, people
Yes.
who seriously thought about ending it all, because pain, when it's in your face and you can't function and you see no hope and
Yeah.
you're popping things and doing things that are making you spiral down, that's really, I've been there. It's
me
not,
too. Yeah.
it's not fun.
So Esther,
No, I wasn't at the point where I was thinking of ending it all, but I know about life is completely upended. And this is devastating. So for me, it's fun to shepherd people and give them hope and show them a path that's totally compelling. It's not snake oil, you know, it's what you were meant to be doing all along. And we
hey
just
everybody, you've got a brand new path with an earth angel to guide you. I mean, you can see this, can't you? I mean,
By all
I can see the
means.
aura radiating around you. It's white, but there's a lot of aqua in it and sea green. And I think this is really somebody who has, who really probably came to the planet in order to bust myths and break barriers and to really bring us a technology that helps us end suffering. So everybody, take advantage of Esther Gokhale and what she has to offer. We adore you, Esther, and we want to thank you for your time today.
Oh, it's so nice to be adored like that. Thank you. You people just smile and glow. It's most enjoyable.
Thank you, sweetheart.
That was a wonderful presentation, and it's very helpful, and the gifts are deeply appreciated.
Yeah. God bless.